A security platform allows you to see your environment with extreme leverage, but only if you know how to use it. By learning 3 simple things, you'll be able to craft threat detections, see attack patterns, and even respond to events in expedited time. So on today's episode, we're gonna be diving headfirst into the essentials of Splunk with real-world examples that you can actually follow. Welcome to Learn with Hack the Box, a unique YouTube series focused on fast-tracking your career in either offensive or defensive cybersecurity. Today, we're focusing on our blue teamers, the SOC analysts, the defenders, and leveraging one of the more popular tools out there, Splunk. Now, before we get into today's topic, we need to ask something from you, the viewer. Learn with Hack the Box is a series we put together based off the topics the community requested, and we couldn't do it without you guys. Please fill out the survey in the description down below at the end of this video to have a direct contribution to the trajectory of the Learn with Hack the Box series. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the episode. So on today's episode, we're going to dive into Splunk and the data sets, the actual architecture and data flow of what that actually looks like. We're going to look at some SPL in action as well as some case scenarios based off of the BOTS v3 data sets. This is going to be a more hands-on episode and show you what the actual flow of Splunk looks like inside of a SOC environment. So Splunk is built around this idea of taking machine data from your environment and making it something that your analysts can actually use. Now we're talking like everything in your environment, from things like endpoints, AWS cloud setups, Sysmon, Windows event, firewall, endpoint tools in your environment. I mean, anything can really kick off data, and then your forwarders in your environment can then take that and then move it into your Splunk environment. Now, I mean, it's all about taking that metadata, your indexes, your source types, and making it human usable for either your analyst or for another tool to then ingest. Now, we actually spent an incredible amount of time on a previous video on setting up a lab that then takes advantage of using Splunk and the BOTS v3 data set. We're not going to go over that again, so if you want to click the link here, go visit that video first and then come back to this video so you can follow along and do all of that together. Now, again, it's a lengthy video, it's 30 minutes, but it's definitely worth the watch, especially if you want to go through and do this with us. But the idea is with Splunk, we want to kind of take all of our data and get a what happened, where happened, and then when happened, and then we can kind of act upon that in our environment in a very effective way. Let's break down the anatomy of a basic Splunk search. Index equals hack the box tells Splunk exactly where to look with all this information. Source type specifies what kind of logs that we're looking at. Event code 4625 filters out to all the failed login attempts that we've seen. And lastly, the stats count by count name aggregates all the results by the user. So every Splunk search that we have is going to follow these types of pipelines. It's going to take all this information. It's then going to filter it out. It's going to transform it and then create an output for us to then look at. So here we are with our Splunk instance. Now, it's important to understand that with Splunk, it's not just taking our raw data, dumping it in there, and everything just works out of the box. We're actually taking all of our data from our endpoints, all of our source types, and then it's saying we're going to take the metadata off of it, we're going to search there, and then everything has been indexed for us to kind of look at after the fact. So anyways, when we go into this, let's get familiarized with what we're working with tonight. We are going to go into the index equals BOTS v3 dataset. And then because this is an interesting one, I'm going to actually add a time modifier, where this is going to allow us to look at just the first time the data is available. So it's going to say in the top right hand, there's last 24 hours. This notice is from like 2019. But I'm going to stop this prematurely because in that few seconds that I just let it run there, we already got 402,000 events. If I let that roll out to its entirety, we'd be here for a hot second. But what I want to show us here really quick is on the left side of our pane, we have interesting fields. Now what this is going to do, if we let this roll out to its entirety, we'd see all the information. But in that quick few seconds, we're actually able to see some important fields that we can use to modify our search later on. So say, for example, we wanted to go into our source type here. By clicking that drop down, it then gives us the source type and then some of the important fields that are events are populating off of. This is very important because when we want to do our questions later on, it kind of gives us a good starting point. So with all that in mind, let's go ahead and dig into our search here. So let's go ahead and exit out of here, go back up to the top, and let's add a source type. So we're going to do a source type equals, we're going to wrap this, we're going to do AWS : excuse me, Cloud Trail, that's the tech. And then we're going to look for a event name, and this is going to be put bucket ACL. So what we're seeing here is when we get this information, we went from having like 400,000 events into 2. And this is important because the higher fidelity your search is, you're not searching the entirety of your environment's data. It's saying, hey, we're looking at this index, don't look at the other stuff. We're going to the source type, don't look at the other stuff. Keep moving along the lines. The more specific you are, the quicker and more efficient your search is going to be. That's very important because a lot of folks would just do index equals wildcard or splat, whatever, and it takes forever, and then all of your administrators on the back end get really upset. But what we see here is that this is going to show any instance where in AWS someone is modifying a bucket's access permission. So if we wanted to go through here, we can do a little bit of quick diving. We could see in this particular instance with the Splunk.Frothly, this is the fictional corporation in the bots data set. We're doing the capture of the flag. You can actually see some information like the request parameters granted to the display name BS-Toll or Bastol. So information in here is kind of fun because you can start taking this, you ask the questions, you can then kind of manipulate your searches to then show you some results. So one way we can use this in our investigation is taking that data set that we have and then creating a higher fidelity product. So what I did here is I took our index bots v3 with our time modifier, and then I then paired it with event codes 4624 successful logins and event code 4625 unsuccessful logins. I took those, I ran them through a transaction command saying, hey, those two things, we're going to group them together, and then we're going to look at the host, the account name, and a span time frame about 30 minutes. So if any of those two events pop off in that data set, we'll then have some sort of output. I then put it through a table format, and I listed off our time, our account name, host, event code, and duration. So if this works correctly, we took our 2 million events and we brought it down to 59 events. And this is when it's a transaction of all these little parameters happening in the same window of time. And we will see here, it's a very human readable chart of all of those account names bundled in with the host as well as those event codes that we were looking at. So this is a great way to start our investigation. It takes our high fidelity product and all of our data and turns it into usable information. So if you look here, you'll see that we do have some items of interest that we can look at and then kind of pivot in our investigation. So if you want to go a little bit further, here's some resources I'd recommend if you want to go in depth on Splunk. So digging into Hack the Box Academy, I'd recommend doing the investigation with Splunk, as well as the understanding log sources and the threat hunt fundamental modules. There you'll find more of the actual fundamental documentation, as well as like the frameworks you would need to kind of apply it to your own environment. Now I'd also like to recommend the Splunk Lantern portal. Now this is a community site that's focused on frequently asked questions, use cases, as well as the scaffolding for things like threat detection and searches. All of this is going to be listed in the description down below. Splunk is a beast of a tool, but if you can master indexing your search query structure as well as fields, you're already ahead of the game. Honestly, you just want to focus on these windows of time as well as tuning out any noise. Threat detection engineering is a field in itself, so don't beat yourself up right away. Give yourself some time to learn the stuff. But honestly, if you have any questions or concerns on things like threat detection, your basic search queries, what have you, just ask the questions down below. We as a community will be happy to answer your questions. Now, if you wanted to see more technical videos on cybersecurity topics, we're gonna click this playlist right here where you can watch more of the Learn with Hack the Box series. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to fill out that survey, like and subscribe, and have a good one.